Welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Post-Gazette Penguins podcast. I'm your host, King Jemison, back in a very, very snowy Pittsburgh after a wonderful road trip out west for both the Penguins and myself. Of course, the Pens went undefeated on that trip, and we're going to talk about that on this episode. We're also going to touch on some recent news and start talking just a little bit about playoff possibilities because, yes, you heard that right. They're more than possible at this point. And so I want to take a little look at the picture there. But first, I want to remind you that this show is presented by FanDuel, where you can bet on all the NHL action. The Pens are off until Thursday when they'll play Chicago at home. But there's at least one game with major Metro implications tonight. That would be on Tuesday. The Capitals are on the road to face the Kraken, who Pittsburgh beat about a week ago in their building. And the Caps are minus 140 favorites to win at FanDuel in that late night puck drop. And so that would be very, very helpful if they were to get upset and continue to lose opportunities to gain ground on the Pens. Oh, and speaking of the Pens, Pittsburgh has moved to minus 195 favorites to make the playoffs at FanDuel. So those odds continue to skyrocket with the Pens playing well and the rest of the division continuing to be a mess. So since we last spoke on Friday, the Penguins beat the NHL worst Canucks 3-2 in Vancouver. They jumped out to a 3-0 lead, but stop me if you've heard this before. They allowed a pair of goals to make it very interesting down the stretch before Stuart Skinner closed the door with some dramatic saves, including a Marc-Andre Fleury like in Game 7 like stop where he saved from a shot from long range. It may have actually been deflected right in front of the net. And then he had to leap across the crease and save the next rebound attempt with his body. It was an incredible save with less than a minute remaining. And he actually ended up making 3 saves in the final 6 seconds as well. Ended up splayed out on the ice at the end of that game against Vancouver. As we kind of had come to expect with this team, they did not make it easy to close out their undefeated road trip. But honestly, it's pretty impressive that given the 2 days off they had in Vancouver, they practiced on Saturday, but they had Friday off and only practice on Saturday. Given the type of hype that was starting to happen around this team following their win in Edmonton, it's pretty impressive they were able to get out to that lead and hold on late. And Vancouver pushed hard, and certainly you would like to see some more responsibility from Pens in third periods. Ultimately, this time it doesn't come back to bite them. So that closed out the 4-game road trip. And I think we have to mention as well that Ben Kindle broke his 19-game streak without a goal in his return to British Columbia with nearly 200 friends and family in attendance. It was not hard to find the Kindle box inside Rogers Arena because it was full of 81 jerseys. And even though the media, we were on the opposite side of the arena from the Kindle box, you could hear him anytime Kindle did something good, and particularly on those 2 goals, because after he got the one, the dam broke for him, and the 18-year-old rookie poured in another a few minutes later in the second period. That was one of his best shots of the season. It broke the camera in the net, an absolute rifle of a slapper. So he is back on the board, and a really special moment for him and his family. And that was really the offense that the Pens needed. Gino or Evgeni Malkin added the other goal there in Vancouver to continue his incredible trip and incredible season. So we're going to talk about the trip as a whole and just sort of where it puts the Pens at this point. And like I said, also just taking a quick glance at their playoff standings. But first, let's touch on some news because there were some things that came out of that Canucks win. First of all, Bryan Rust at the end and came flying in to defend the net, and he caught Brock Boeser up high with an elbow. Vancouver was understandably upset about it, called it a dirty play. Their coach basically insinuated that, or not so much insinuated, said he guessed that the league office would be taking a look at it, and apparently they will be. Apparently Bryan Rust will be having a hearing for that incident coming up. I think we could see a suspension coming for Rust. And, we saw what the offense looked like without him the weekend that he missed 2 games, and they played Calgary at home and Boston on the road. They scored a total of 1 goal. That was not just about Bryan Rust, but he certainly had his absence had a hand in that struggle. So certainly that would be a blow for the Pens ahead of 2 very, very winnable games this week. They play Chicago at home and the Rangers at home. That Rangers game on Saturday will feature the 2016 Cup celebration because, of course, Mike Sullivan will be coming back to Pittsburgh. So those are two bad teams, and those are two teams that you would like to pick up 2 points each against, and it's going to be harder to do that if you've got a Rust suspension coming. We'll see about that. We'll also see about when they announced something about Jack St. Ivany's injury. He went out with an upper body injury in the first period against Vancouver and did not return. Looks like Connor Clifton's going to be going back in the lineup. And listen, the Pens' defensive depth was a good problem to have, and I feel somewhat responsible for St. Ivany's injury because I asked Dan Muse in the pregame media availability, how he feels about this team's defensive depth and whether that's kind of led to some hard decisions. Well, he said it was a good problem to have, and sure enough, now it's not a problem that he will have because he lost one right shot defenseman, and so Connor Clifton, who had gone up in the press box after playing well, looks like he's going to slide back into the lineup. We'll see if Ilya Solovyov is going to play at some point, but my guess is no. I don't really see where he's going to fit in at this point as a left shot defenseman with who they've got on that side already. And then finally, one more piece of news from Vancouver. There was a bit of a viral video at the end of the game, amid the post-game celebration. Evgeni Malkin is doubled over in pain. Looks like maybe he got hit in the shoulder where he had been injured previously. But listen, Dan Muse didn't have an update on it after the game. Malkin was not available, but afterwards, I heard that the Penguins believe he's going to be fine. Now, we'll see if that ends up being true. We'll see if he practices today. That would be Tuesday in Cranberry, but it does not seem like that was something to worry about. Now, quickly on to the games and that 4-0 road trip that has pushed the Pens to 11-2-2 in the 15 games since the holiday break. The impressive thing about this road trip is that they won in different ways. In Seattle, it was all about their depth. They got 5 goals from bottom 6 forwards and from defensively minded blue liners. Connor Dewar had 2. Justin Brazeau had 1. And listen, he's played in the top 6 at times, but he's now down to the third line. And then you had Parker Wotherspoon and Brett Kulak each scoring. So really a game that highlighted the Pens' depth, and they didn't give much up to Seattle either. Another game where Seattle was able to make a little bit closer in the third period, but not too much. And then the Pens were able to get back in and extend that lead. Well, actually, it was really the Pens were able to take the lead at the end of the second period and then extend it at the start of the third period. Kraken make it closer, make it a 1-goal game, but then a credit to the Penguins for finding a goal from the top line. Ricard Raquel punches one in off a Crosby assist, and then Dewar adds the empty netter to make it a little more lopsided than the gameplay would have indicated. And then they go to Calgary, a team that is not very good, but a gritty defensive team, and the Pens just beat them at their own game. Held them to something like 1.4 expected goals in that game. A really, really, really strong defensive effort, really gave up almost no good chances. And the ones they did give up, Stuart Skinner was largely there to stop. They only allowed 1 goal in Calgary and won fairly handily. The other story for that game was the second line that was unbelievable. Every member of the second line of Igor Chinakhov, Tommy Novak, and Evgeni Malkin had a goal, and they were all really pretty goals as well. And then one night later, against a rested Edmonton team, they just had an offensive explosion. We know about the 3 goals in 37 seconds, and then they were able to add 3 more in the second period to kind of just extend that lead and make it so there was no hope for Edmonton to come back. And that was an eye-opening effort, I think, for not just Pittsburgh, but for the NHL world to see this Penguins team that was projected to be one of the worst in the league come in there and stomp the Oilers in their own house, and of course beating Tristan Jarry. I'm sorry, one of their second trio of goals. So their final goal of the game came early in the third period. So they got 2 in the second period, and then another early in the third period to kind of take a game that looked like it was going to swing the Oilers' way. It was 3-1, and Edmonton had some momentum, and then that's when Evgeni Malkin comes up with an assist and a goal, And then Igor Chinakhov adds another early in the third period to just keep the very dangerous Oilers at arm's length throughout. And then finally, the Vancouver game, I think Ben Kindle is the story, but really they won that game because of great goaltending. Stuart Skinner saved 2.4 goals above expected, according to Sports Logic. He had to be incredible down the stretch, and he was. And so I think it's just a credit to this team and their ability to win in different ways where they can use their depth. They get top line scoring, good defense, an offensive explosion, again, largely from your first and second lines. And then you have a goalie, not exactly steal a win for you because the expected goals were very close, but certainly Stuart Skinner had to be excellent for them to get that final victory in Vancouver. And I think that just puts this team, you're not going to always get all those factors in one game, but if you have the ability to, have different guys and different facets of your game step up, that gives you a lot more sustainability over the course of a long season. I think one of the other stories of this trip was Gino. He's one of the stories of the season. We talked in the last episode about his comments after the Edmonton game about wanting one more year and that being part of his motivation this season. But he ends up with 3 goals and 2 assists on the trip, and all of them were beautiful. Like just really, really incredible play. And they look unbeatable in every one of his shifts, and the numbers bear that out. 37-19 even strength goal differential in favor of the Penguins when Malkin is on the ice. They've scored over 70% of the goals across all situations with Malkin on the ice. He has been easily one of their best players. He's frankly has some of the best advanced numbers in the league in terms of his on-ice impact. And that's not something that we've seen from him in the last couple of years. So that's obviously one of the biggest differences in the team's turnaround this year. And I think the final conclusion you have to come to is that the playoffs seem very real for this Pens team. They have an over 75% chance to make the postseason, according to Money Puck. They have a 6-point lead on 4th place in the Metro. They currently sit in second, 2 points over the Islanders. And, it's not just that they've gotten great goaltending and been opportunistic offensively. This team is 6th in expected goals percentage per natural stat trick. If you include all situations, they're 10th in 5-on-5 expected goals percentage. So, it's not just about the special teams either. All the numbers point to this Penguins team being for real. And they play in a pretty bad division. So they're going to have an opportunity if they can just sort of hold the line in the final 31 games to get in the postseason and perhaps even advance. Right now, they'd be facing the Islanders. The Islanders, when you look at their underlying numbers, even though they're just 2 points shy of the Penguins, they're not as pretty advanced stuff. And so I think that'd probably be a series where Pittsburgh was favored, particularly if they were hosting or if they were the higher seed there and hosting that game 1. So there's plenty of time to go. A lot of ways that things could go wrong, particularly for an older team. But listen, what I wrote in my sort of takeaways piece from on the plane ride home from the road trip is, yes, the other shoe could drop at any time. But if this road trip is any indication, don't expect it to. This team looks for real, and it's been super fun to watch. And Pens fans will have a couple chances to watch them inside PPG Paints Arena later this week with home games on Thursday and Saturday. But that's going to do it for the Tuesday edition of the Post-Gazette Penguins podcast. Please like and subscribe wherever you're seeing or listening or watching this. Thank you so much. Your support means so much, and especially those of you who subscribe at post-gazette.com. That is greatly appreciated in this time, and that's always going to be the best of our work. And we'll have some coverage from practice today, seeing if we hear anything about Bryan Rust, any injury news, and of course, you never know what's going to come out of practice. So I'll be back with you Friday to recap the Blackhawks game and any news that does come up this week. But until then, thanks so much for watching, and stay warm, and I hope everybody is done with their shoveling. Thank you.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.